Welcome. The difficulty level of this video is novice. Today we're going to talk about books that contributed to the genre of futurism and were foundational to the body of knowledge on which contemporary futurism is built. And a lot of these books are from quite some time ago, so we will see how their forecasts and predictions fared as well. So to kick it off, the first book that we're going to look at is a very famous book, The Age of Spiritual Machines by Ray Kurzweil. Now, the thing about this book is that it was published in 1999, and as you can see, this is a very well-worn, yellowed up copy, so I've had it for a very long time. Small story around that. This is the receipt that is still in the book. And if this is at all of interest to you, maybe pause the video and look at it. I purchased this from Borders Bookstore, Chicago, Illinois, in November of 2001. And the reason that is relevant is because, as we know, technological disruption has been replacing brick and mortar retail with e-commerce retail, and Borders Books was one of the most high-profile retail chains to actually vanish in favor of online purchases of books, and that was quite some years ago. So despite this being a book about futurism and technological disruption, the means for purchasing it was still very low-tech, a brick and mortar bookstore from which I had purchased this book back in 2001. But now back to the book itself. The primary subject of the book is that computing trends, such as Moore's law and exponential aspects of the progress of computing, and combine that with other exponentials that go back centuries or even millennia and all the way to the dawn of life on Earth. So going back 4 billion years, the evolution of intelligence, the acceleration of that, emergence of pre-computational technologies in human civilization, and then computing itself. And one of the important points of education that this book provides is that it tells us Moore's law is not the be-all and end-all of computing. There were paradigms before Moore's law. In fact, there were 4 paradigms before Moore's law, and Moore's law is just the 5th, and therefore even the ending of Moore's law, which was predicted accurately in this book, give or take a year or two, would not represent the end of computing. And that is absolutely correct, because there are new types of computing that are not going to be dependent on semiconductors and shrinkage of semiconductor transistors. Now, despite Mr. Kurzweil knowing that in this book, the problem in his forecasts has been that he, throughout the book, assumes that computational price efficiency doubles every year, when in fact it was doubling every 18 months during the time of Moore's law and is flattening as the Moore's law paradigm is ending. Now, the difference between doubling every 12 months, as Mr. Kurzweil has calculated, versus doubling every 18 months is that over even a few decades, the divergence between those two trends is of a factor of thousands. And therefore, the forecasts that he has made are off by more and more the further away they were from the time that he forecasted them. One aspect of this book that started out being famous but over time became infamous and led to Mr. Kurzweil being beaten up a lot, somewhat unfairly, in my opinion, is that from the point of publication in 1999, he forecasted the future at some very fixed intervals. He forecasted 10 years out, being 2009 from his point of view, 20 years out, being 2019, 30 years out, being 2029, and 100 years out, being 2099. So now, sitting here in 2021, if you look through these forecasts, his 2009 forecasts are not too bad. Most of them are correct. The thing he was most correct about was the subject he knows best, which is that computer would continue to become smaller, more efficient, and come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and many people would own several of them, whereas in 1999 an entire household may have owned one. And perhaps an accidental prediction of his is that economic growth would continue and be exponential and accelerating. He only devoted 2 sentences of that book to this concept of economic progress, but he was right about that. And in fact, when I read that in the beginning, that contributed a significant catalyst towards my own thoughts on this subject, which I've written very extensively about, the economic side of exponential growth. But then as you get to his forecast for 2019 and even 2029, which from our point of view in 2021 is 8 years in the future, but you can tell that the world he predicted for 2029 is not going to happen in just 8 years. The error propagation of his overly ambitious doubling estimate of 12 months for computing really circulates through, and the technologies he predicted for 2019 still appear to be 10 years away from us in 2021, and what he predicts for 2029 appears to be quite a bit further in the future than that. The other thing that he does get beaten up for, and in this case somewhat justifiably, is that he is one of the major contributors to this radical life extension / longevity paradigm. And in 2019 he predicted that human lifespan would be 120 years in 2019. Now, as we know, nothing of the sort has happened. Human lifespan, even in advanced countries, is about the same as it was in 1999. There's truly been no gains on that front at all. There has been progress in survival rates for people with heart disease and cancer, yes, but overall lifespan has just not risen at all, and is certainly nothing close to 120 years. I am pretty widely known for being a skeptic of the notion that human lifespan can be extended radically beyond the age of 100. You know, medical technologies will get us to the age of 100, but probably not further than that, simply because human longevity is not essential for technological progress. The technological megatrends kind of transcend humanity, and human longevity is not a necessary condition for that. Therefore, all the resources it would take to enable radical life extension will simply not be pulled away from other areas of technology, as technology will not allow that. Humans do not have that much control over the laws of nature. I'm willing to change my mind on that if we do see a number of people who are crossing the age of 100 also cross the age of 110. As it stands right now, of all the people who cross the age 100, only 1 out of 1,000 of those cross the age of 110, so 9% mortality rate of people between the ages of 100 and 109. And when that changes, yeah, then I'm willing to revisit my assumptions about human longevity, but at the moment, no. I think it's more an emotionally driven wish than something that has substantial science behind it, despite the funding and the interest in something so evergreen as a fountain of youth. But otherwise, this is a fantastic book. It is very foundational to the entire genre of futurism, and Ray Kurzweil, despite having been wrong, remains one of the topmost futurists in the world. And it's a book I certainly recommend if you can get your hands on it, and I'm going to include some links to it in the description box below. So I hope you found this review interesting, and thank you for watching.